Daily Detroit is brought to you in large part by our members at patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Get swag, access to our member-only Discord chat, and know that you're supporting local media. After all, local media cannot survive without local support. So join us at patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Hello, everyone, and welcome to your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. Joining me at the studio at Techtown, an honored repeat guest of Daily Detroit, Sam Robinson, who is starting a new chapter. Sam, I'm so glad to see you. It's always great to have you in our friendly confines.
Jer, I am pleased to be back at Techtown. It's a cool building.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff happening here, too, you know?
Yeah. I went and buy fresh roots over there off Cass and got a mango smoothie that I just finished. So,
what would you rate it? Star rating?
10.
10. Okay. Awesome.
It was $10. It was also 10 ounces.
Okay. And so it was a 10?
Liquid. It was a 10 out of 10. I mean, I have no quarrels with the texture, the taste and flavor. I love mango smoothies. You can't get them anymore for under like $6. It's kind of sad. So I make them a lot myself at home. I just go to the store and buy frozen fruit or go to Eastern Market and freeze mangoes. And then ninja time.
You see they got a new shed over there in Eastern Market that's coming up soon.
I saw that headline. What does that mean? I mean, they just built a shed 7 or 8 or what is it now?
I think they took over a place that kind of had refrigeration and kind of blessed it as a shed.
An honorary shed.
Over by, what is it, Wiggly's Meats or Frank's Meats?
Yeah.
I always get the names
I know
up.
The building.
Yeah.
They were talking about. I didn't read the full story, but I was like, what does this mean?
Let's go from mangoes to misinformation.
Sure.
Because you have a new thing. Now, everyone knows you as you have a great career, most recently Axios Detroit, but I say most recently because you got a new thing going on.
I do, yeah. I start this week at the Detroit Free Press through the election. I'm really excited to join a respected colleague of mine that used to be my editor at MLive, Emily Lawler.
Oh, she's great.
She is, and their whole politics team there is amazing. I will be assisting them in helping manage their misinformation tracker tool, which is a part of a program launched by the University of Texas, Austin. They are trying to, across the country, really give folks the tools to be able to report, identify, and if it comes to the attention of us and we say, hey, this might be problematic or something that, should be cleared up for the record, we'll write a story about it, and that portal page will soon be available to the public. If you go follow me on Twitter, I will be tweeting and talking about it. For the next 2 months, I will be out in various election sites and events promoting this tool. Really excited about it. Obviously, as we know, misinformation isn't going anywhere. If anybody watched the last presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, we heard plenty of it.
It's only increasing, it seems. And what's crazy is that the more absurd stories are starting to get even more traction in areas where you wouldn't even fathom to think that they would get to a debate stage. But yet here we are. With how you've been covering everything, how much have you been running into misinformation? How much has it frustrated you as a journalist? Because obviously you wouldn't take on a project that you weren't passionate about.
Yeah, since 2020, I'll go back in time to November, December of 2020. Donald Trump had just lost the presidential election. But of course, as we know, he put forth multiple efforts to reverse the result, and in every effort, courts struck down his arguments. For lack of better words, we're all frivolous. He lost the election, and that's been something that I think all of us in media have had to. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's been hard to communicate with people because so many of them do believe, and I mean, we've had this in the past before, but in my lifetime, it's never been to the degree in which a substantial group of people just flatly do not believe the last election result. And still, 4 years later, on the debate stage, you heard Donald Trump claim again that he won in 2020. We did hear from David Muir of ABC him reference Lex Friedman's podcast, which Trump said he lost by a whisker. And that was actually the very first time Donald Trump has ever conceded. Moments later, he sort of
backtracked.
Yes,
it was like, it was
right,
sarcastic. Yeah. For me, rolling back the clock, maybe the last 25 years I've been in media, there's always been the 10 to 20% that's kind of fringe and a little wackadoo, right? Because there's always, oh, they're just your little bit crazy uncle, and you're like, oh, but that's okay, whatever. It has really like infected the mainstream. Like when I think about what's happening now, it reminds me when I look back into American history, when we've had periods of hysteria where large swaths of people just started believing a certain thing that wasn't true. And there was just usually some sort of socioeconomic cause underneath it. But we haven't seen something like that, I don't want to say, since like the 1880s.
Well, we're in it right now because Elon Musk and his takeover of Twitter is accelerating it. I've been using that application for the better part of 15 years. I've never seen it at the floor, dirty locker room, basement. You don't want to go there. It's like my middle school locker room when everyone would spray the Axe right after there. It just smells terrible. That's scrolling through the Twitter timeline right now. It's just terrible. It's just racist, anti-Semitic, anti-black thing after another. I
It's
don't
part
know.
of why I got off. I literally let my Twitter account not go because we have listeners over there. I'll answer DMs. I'll reply stuff, whatever. But I took my focus away, and actually, in 10 months, I have rebuilt my Threads following just as big as my Twitter following that I had in 10 years.
Yeah, I can't.
I know you can't. 'Cause
Can't
you're in a
get down with
different world.
Threads. I don't support Mark Zuckerberg in any of his ventures. That's why I don't post on Facebook. I'm a cog in the machine, but
So what's the difference in your mind between then, say, Elon Musk and Zuckerberg? Not to push you too hard, but they're both.
Zuck just came out as according to Trump. Trump says he cannot vote for a Democrat. Trump told reporters that Mark Zuckerberg told him over the phone after his assassination attempt, which has a lot of misinformation swirling around it on the left.
Yeah.
I'll go on my For You timeline.
But it's tough in both situations where I will open up Twitter or Twitter will give me a notification because I still keep it on the phone because you have to, right?
Yeah,
You're in
yeah.
media, you have to. And it will literally be all Elon. Even though I'll never get a notification about you. I go to your account and I'll be like, okay, what's Sam up to? And you would think with the tracking, it'd be like, oh, he's always tapping on Sam. He's going to send me notifications about Sam because I literally don't even follow Elon. And yet my phone will blow up with like Elon stuff. And that shows you the power of what these apps have.
It really is. I don't know. I just don't trust Mark Zuckerberg. I don't like him. In 2020, I had to deal with Mark Zuckerberg in my own job with the Republicans that I would talk to, a lot of them that didn't believe in the election result because of the money that he put in, private dollars into the public election, sort of had a bipartisan, questionable feel around it in 2020. And the Trump camp will use that when asked by reporters about election fraud. They'll say, well, the conditions around the 2020 election were so because of COVID that mailing voted. Matt Maddock right now, a state representative from Milford, a Republican, is talking about how the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, should be jailed for COVID-related election policies that played a part of the 2020 election. Mark Zuckerberg, I think, is warming up to conservatives, was my bringing it back to that original point. I think he is. I think he's apologized several times for censoring. And I think he's even gone as far to say Facebook shouldn't have removed Donald Trump from the platform during January 6th.
Yeah, it's tough because so much now flows through these algorithms, but I think it's incumbent upon those of us who create stuff to actually have our own platforms to connect with people directly, whether it's newsletters or go read the paper. Because if it just comes through the algorithm is set. And I'm complicit in this. I use the algorithm in different ways, right? We both are complicit in this to get exposure, to share with people. But at the end of the day, it's tough because these algorithms don't really always show you what you need to know or what is really positive to know. It shows you what outrages you and what works for them.
And they take all the money at your screen the most longest. Like if you're watching these things and you're getting like triggered and it's like, oh, this is terrible. Because you just did that for 7 seconds, now your phone knows the type of thing that can trigger you for 7 seconds. And it's going to keep doing that. Elon have said, in fairness to him, he's pretty transparent about it. He talks is like, if you're engaging with a certain thing, you're going to continue being fed those types of certain things. And in fairness to Elon, albeit that he did take away the ability to just use your own timeline from people you follow to have the posts be populated by people you follow, versus the For You page is what we're talking about in terms of I am seeing more anti-Semitic content. It's not my For You page. It's not the people that I follow.
Right.
I don't have any control over what I see on my For You page because of, I guess, my own brain and eyes and what the algorithm decides that I want to see and what I'll spend time looking at, what I'll stop at. I'm so interested in that.
Well, how does your fight against misinformation lock into that? You're part of that conversation back and forth. A lot of that misinformation is spreading on that social media. Off air, we were talking a little bit about this with the debate and the misinformation that was shared about Springfield, Ohio. Right? That's all in the very online culture that a lot of people I know in real life had no idea about.
Right. Immigrants eating your animals.
Yes.
Yeah. And, how that happens is somebody takes a picture of a black immigrant looking person. There's no verification on if it actually is or if it's an American citizen or not. Picking up a bird out of the road. And that's the image. And then it turns into somebody sees the image and says, I'm going to make a funny meme out of this image. And then the meme, somebody from a political apparatus sees the meme and says, that's a pretty funny meme. I'm going to use that pretty funny meme to make some sort of politicized message. And now you have this narrative about different people or groups like what you have in Springfield, Ohio today and this week. Students have been getting their classes canceled due to bomb threats because people around the country, I would assume, are targeting the city. The city manager came out and said in the city police even came out and have said this week that there are no reports of people eating animals, people stealing their animals to eat them. Obviously, this comes from a woman in a different part of Ohio that has allegedly done what they're accusing Haitian immigrants to be doing en masse, which, again, is a trope from the idea of voodooism, which Marianne Williamson, thank you, Marianne, we know why people are saying that. You don't have to tell us again. But this idea that Haitians are this mystical people that cannot be, it's like, we know that at the end of this, it's just racist stuff.
Sometimes I'm like, is it 2024, 1924, 1824?
Right. Marianne Williamson says, you don't discount the fact that Haitian voodoo exists. Yeah, Marianne, we know. Are there any credible reports that Haitian immigrants, let alone undocumented illegal immigrants, are stealing residents' cats, stealing their dogs out of their yards? So far, we don't.
How do you open people's minds to accepting that maybe they fell for misinformation or to keep their eye out for misinformation to help your, the work that you're going to be doing over the next few months to be more effective?
Oh, man, I think about the employees at Chick-fil-A, the Chick-fil-A workers that have to work underneath. They have a big sign above them that says, accuracy this month. And every time that they make a mistake or a customer says, hey, I wanted this and you gave me this, their little accuracy ticker goes down. I think about umpires and referees. Obviously, they're graded also. We don't have that same grading system for journalists and reporters and writers, but I would imagine most younger ones that haven't been in this industry for 10 years, I think I've been in here for half of that time now, about 5 years. I can remember almost not every single one, because sometimes it'll just be kind of like sources want you to rephrase something but corrections, how many times you get something wrong or when you're corrected. You've gotten things wrong in your life, right?
Totally.
Yeah. And
you come back and the next day and you're like, you know what? I got this wrong. Or I wasn't quite right. Here's another thing. And that's part of the responsibility. If you see an outlet that never issues corrections or even just labeling, hey, this is speculation or this is what people are thinking,
right.
That's, to me, it's important to see people issue those corrections.
And that responsibility is never on the onus of individuals or non-reporter journalists, publications, because they have no...
Or influencers.
Right. I mean...
Which I was told earlier this week I'm a terrible influencer.
What? Who said that? That's...
Yeah, a friend of mine's like, yeah, you're really good at talking about the stories, but you're a terrible influencer.
Oh, man. People try to call me an influencer. I say, I don't know about that. I do say, I appreciate everybody that comes up to me and will say, hey, man, what's going on? Hey, I appreciate your work.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your work and seeing that there is a consumer part to this where they can actually, go to the portal and submit stuff and gives that two-way conversation. I think that's really good.
I think so too. A lot of people get mad that news sites no longer have comment sections. You can always just comment underneath our tweets as you already do.
Or send an email. I think
send the emails. We always see the emails. Yeah, man. MLive email people would be crazy. All the Axios people would be like, I love you guys so much. And then MLive people would be like, you blank, 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 beep, beep, beep. That was crazy.
It'll be interesting. Let's see what this next publication's like.
I will say it comes in all forms. It's not as partisan as you might think. I asked Jocelyn Benson a few weeks ago after the governor posted a manipulated media of her own. It was the meme of Red Wings when they are in between periods. It'll happen at Pistons games at halftime. They'll put a baby on the scoreboard and everyone will cheer, and then they'll put a opposing fan with the opposing team's jersey on the screen and everyone will boo. The governor posted a video of Little Caesars Arena big screen with a video of Kamala Harris in which the crowd cheered, and then appeared a video of JD Vance and the crowd booed. You wonder what happened with that post. It went viral with tens of thousands of people believing that it was real. The Secretary of State didn't really answer my question. It's problematic, and it happens on both sides. And
it isn't as direct in this case, but it's interesting that this makes me think about my experiences recently on Threads, because I joke in my head, like, X has become right-wing Twitter, and then Threads has become left-wing Twitter. Like, Twitter has cleaved into two separate areas, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I do believe Twitter was left-wing before it was right-wing.
They went to Threads.
Yes.
I tell you, I have seen so much of a rise of misinformation on the left that really disheartens me, and an overall lack of trust in journalists in general. It really hurts me because, to me, part of being like a logical person is like, okay, I'm going to take in different ideas. But you saw it especially with the situation with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and his age, and bunches of other things where I see almost like the blue MAGA. And it really broke my heart because I'm like, oh, this is everywhere now. It is infected.
Those people come after me. Those people have come after one of my favorite journalists, the New York Times, Stead Herndon, who does a fantastic podcast, The Run Up, for months, simply for reporting the feelings of Americans who told me.
All of my friends in person thought he was too old.
Right, he's too old.
It's only online in the distortion field on this app on my phone that people were telling me otherwise.
Is he shot? Is he gone? Does he have dementia? No, we know that. No, clearly.
No, he has a speaking issue, and he's had one his entire life, by the way.
It's progressively gotten worse as he's aged. And that's a clear, factual sentence we can say out loud. It's
like, I fully believe upstairs, everything's going. It's that connection to speech, because he started his life with a stutter, and he worked very hard to overcome it. And as you get older, that's my work. And,
it's very hard to ask people to elect you to the highest office without being an effective communicator. And that's what he was going to do.
That's what's going on.
Yeah, that's what he was asking people to do. Kudos for him for stepping down. Obviously, Democrats are thrilled and enthused about that. I don't think this could have gone any better for Democrats, what has happened in the last however many months since he stepped down.
That actually leads me to a couple of questions that I have that before I let you go, after talking about this new gig and everything. We've got that new presidential candidate. You are one of the best at covering Detroit and Metro Detroit and Michigan and politics. How much of a difference has Kamala Harris made? What's the vibe shift? What are you sensing out there in a general way? Do you think this changes the entire race? How do you feel about it?
It changes the entire race. The vibe has shifted. Is it to the level of 2008 Obama? Is it a movement? That's my question. I don't see the movement aspect. I mean, I was only 11 years old when Obama was elected, but we certainly felt it. We watched his
I remember it well.
I remember it well. I mean, I was in conservative Midland at the time, and it was a historic event. The historic event has already happened. Yes, she will be the first woman to be president.
If elected.
She would be the first South Asian person to be president if elected. She would be the first black woman to be president if elected. All of that sort of is subdued by the fact that she's already the vice president. And that history already occupies the White House right now. When you're talking about movements, and I think that's what we experienced with Trump, we definitely experienced that with Obama. I don't know. Does she need a movement to win this election? That would be my next question, and I'm not so sure of that.
And I think we're not going to know until this unfolds, because there's this group of voters that are very entrenched on both sides, and it's a very small group of voters that's going to make the decision on this. Because most people I talk to, they're not as tuned in because they're like, I've made up my mind. I know what I'm going to do. I'm not even going to watch.
Yeah, and the amount of people that Kamala has turned who wouldn't have otherwise voted, I don't know. I do think, having Taylor Swift helps. I do think that's...
I think that's underappreciated by some very serious people.
I said this yesterday to somebody. I said, that's going to get more votes than if she were pandering to the, pro ceasefire, pro Palestine, the so-called Michigan vote. I don't think there's as many voters there as there are Taylor Swift fans that will now register and sign up to vote and vote for Kamala because their favorite artist. We'll probably see a Beyonce. Kamala's been using her song. You can feel the change. I mean, you see the shirts.
I didn't see a single Biden lawn sign. I mean, lawn signs aren't a great indicator.
I see some lawn signs.
But I haven't seen many Bidens, but I saw a lot more Harris. Like with Harris, and then all of a sudden they popped up like
seems as everyone woke up. I mean, with Harris too, I mean, just the fact that this is a short landing slide for her. I mean, she's got this window of time. I really do think that benefits her just because we've already been hearing about Trump for the last, he's been campaigning pretty much since he lost back in 20. I think a lot of people are exhausted. Do I think his voters are exhausted of his message? No, they want more. If enough of them vote in Michigan, they're going to get it. If enough of them vote in Pennsylvania, they're going to get that. So it's going to be real interesting. I would imagine it's going to be something that we don't learn the results in Detroit right away, and that will probably delay when we find out about Michigan. Michigan is obviously one of the most important swing states this cycle, so we will probably have a huge microscope on us come November 5th.
Yeah. And to be clear, like within the city of Detroit, it's more about what percentage as opposed to, there's no doubt that it's going to go Democrat, but what percentage can Trump eat away at? And I have listeners who've been sending me Trump mailers, which is something that, I did not see in the past, straight from the Michigan GOP.
I just talked to a person that works for Kamala Harris's team. I think they're a volunteer door knocker. And he told me, Sam, it's insane the amount of doors I knock on the east side of Detroit who tell me they're voting for Trump. He says it's concerning. Back before Kamala was the candidate, City Council member Gabriela Santiago Romero said at an uncommitted event on February 27th, the night of the presidential primary, where 100,000 Michigan voters voted not for Biden or for Trump, but for uncommitted to signal their opposition to the war in Gaza. She said on stage that it felt a lot like 16, and she was there. She worked for Hillary Clinton in 16. She's obviously talking about Joe Biden's campaign that has been over for a few months now. His last campaign stop ever was at Renaissance High School in Detroit. I think that's notable for the sort of record books of history there. The Republicans still feel like they're going to win. I don't think it's a landslide anymore. I think before the swap from Joe to Kamala, I know because they told me, it felt like 16 on steroids, one prominent Republican told me.
Before we go, what is the story? And I don't like to say undercovered because people do cover a lot of these stories. People say, oh, so-and-so didn't get reported on. Oftentimes it did. You just didn't see it. But what should the public pay more attention to?
Yeah, campaign finance and corporate handouts. The biggest news item. We could all get all the grants in the world and report about SOAR, Michigan's Strategic Outreach Fund, that is sort of this $1 billion slush fund for companies vying to bring major manufacturing projects to the state of Michigan. We know how important these manufacturing sites are. Michigan infamously lost out on a couple of them that went to Kentucky and Tennessee back in 21, which was the sort of catalyst to create this $1 billion slush fund that comes from our tax money. And we're giving it to General Motors and Ford so they can build factories.
It's a whole nother episode to talk about.
I think we should know more about that. I think everyone from both sides of the aisle would be interesting to learn more about that. And then secondly, kind of connected to that is, when all of us got these mailers about Mary Waters during the congressional race the primary race between her and Shri Tanadar, the incumbent United States representative in Congress currently. We didn't know until Simon Schuster at Bridge told us. I had an idea, me and Malachi kind of figured, but we didn't know it was AIPAC until after
I had a sense it was AIPAC as well.
You realize it's like, like this lobby is having this effect on to the point of there are some politicos, people, strategists who tell me, it would have been a lot different, the race between Shri and Mary, without that money going to her campaign. They spent over $2 million on advertisements, mailers, talking about her past criminal history, and it seemed pretty effective.
Yeah.
What should we know more about? We should know more about how our money and how the money of others are affecting our public process. Too often, these things happen behind closed doors, out of the public eye. You got lawmakers signing NDAs now.
Right, you're a public steward.
Right. I didn't want to say anything. But
I
yeah.
can. You're a public steward.
Doing
of
things in the
public dollars.
in the private. That's you're gonna bring scrutiny to yourself doing that. Is the correct journalist way to say that.
Yes.
Yeah. I will be saying things in the correct journalism way for the next few months just because of the stakes in which being accurate this election cycle, I mean, they're high. You know, we know that there will probably be some sort of effort in or around Detroit and Michigan. We saw it in 2020 with TCF. That was obviously the epicenter of the Stop the Steal movement. We saw it in Antrim County, where you had just regular folks having to push back against absolute nonsense. Push back against stuff that people didn't understand what they were looking at, didn't understand what they were reading. It's going to be up to me to let them know. And just so if anybody's listening and you follow me and you listen to my tweets, I'm all the time, and you know that I'm working out of the best interests of my heart and with good intentions every time. People that know me know I'm not playing for a side. So
You're not.
If
And
it comes off as
vouch
I am for one
personally.
side or the other, sorry, I'm not. I'm going for the truth.
Yeah, I can vouch for that personally, that you do excellent work. You work very hard and you put all of your heart into it. I wouldn't have you here if you didn't. I really appreciate you, Sam. I cannot think of anyone else better to look out for us in the next few months. And I really appreciate you. Remind people where they can find you.
Samuel J. Robb that's at Samuel, UEL, Sam, J. ROB, at Twitter, twitter.com. It's not X. It might be. Is it X.com?
It's officially
X. But
He said-
you can
he
still
said
type
Twitter.
in twitter.com.
Elon
It'll
said
still
Twitter.
go to X. So I mean,
Right,
we
right,
still have the
right.
back channel link. But I did say that. I said until it is X, I will not call it X. I'm going to still call it Twitter. Guess what? I still don't care about you. It's still Twitter to me.